Lost among the stars, Commander Sarah Chen never imagined her first deep space mission would end in disaster. The prototype quantum drive on board the ESS Pathfinder had failed spectacularly, leaving them stranded in an uncharted sector of space. Floating in her survival pod, watching the wreckage of her ship disperse across the endless void, she wondered if this would be her final view of the universe. Emergency power at 15%, the pod's AI announced in its maddeningly calm voice. Estimated 6 hours of life support remaining. Sarah closed her eyes, trying to steady her breathing. She was the only survivor. The quantum drive's explosion had been instantaneous, giving the rest of her crew no chance to reach the escape pods. The weight of their loss pressed against her chest, threatening to crush her resolve. A sudden flash of light pierced through her closed eyelids. Sarah's eyes snapped open, her heart racing. Through the pod's viewport, she saw something impossible, a massive ship, unlike anything in Earth's fleet. Its hull seemed to ripple like liquid metal, glowing with an inner light that shifted through colors she had no names for. Before she could process what she was seeing, a beam of soft purple light enveloped her pod. The emergency sirens fell silent as her pod began moving toward the alien vessel. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of the Earth Space Service," she broadcast on all frequencies, keeping her voice steady despite her fear. "I am unarmed and in need of assistance." The response came not through her comm system, but directly in her mind, a presence both alien and oddly comforting. "We have you, small one. You are safe now." The next few minutes passed in a blur as her pod was drawn into a cavernous hangar bay. When the pod's hatch finally opened, Sarah found herself face to face with her rescuers. They were tall, easily 8 feet in height, with bodies that seemed to be made of the same flowing metallic substance as their ship. Their faces were vaguely humanoid, but their eyes, all 4 of them, swirled with galaxies of their own. One of them stepped forward, its form shifting slightly as it moved. "I am Nexus Guide Zara Ven of the Collective Harmony." Your vessel's death cry echoed across the void. "We came as quickly as we could." Sarah stumbled as she tried to stand, her legs weak from hours in the cramped pod. Zara Ven caught her with surprising gentleness, its metallic skin warm and alive against hers. "Thank you," Sarah managed, fighting back tears. "My crew, my ship. We mourn with you," Zara Ven responded, genuine sorrow rippling through its mental voice. "But you must rest now. Your body is near collapse." As if those words had broken a dam, exhaustion crashed over Sarah. The last thing she remembered was being lifted in Zara Ven's crystalline arms, feeling safer than she had any right to feel in the presence of an unknown alien species. She awoke in what appeared to be a medical bay, though it looked more like an art installation than any hospital she'd ever seen. The walls pulsed with soft light, and what she assumed were medical instruments floated nearby like curious butterflies. "Your body is recovering well," Zara Ven's mental voice came before Sarah saw them enter, "though your grief remains heavy." Sarah sat up, noting that her uniform had been replaced with a shimmering garment that seemed to adapt to her movements. "I need to contact Earth, let them know what happened to the Pathfinder." "That may prove difficult," Zara Ven replied, their form shifting with what Sarah was beginning to recognize as concern. "Your quantum drive's failure created what we call a fold space anomaly. We are very far from your home." "How far?" Sarah asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. "By your methods of travel, several lifetimes at least." Zara Ven moved closer, the galaxy's eyes swirling faster. "But that is not your only challenge. The anomaly has changed you." Sarah looked down at her hands and gasped. In the medical bay's light, she could see her skin had a faint metallic sheen, and when she focused, she could feel something new stirring in her mind, a connection to the ship itself. "The quantum energies have begun to remake you," Zara Ven explained. "You are becoming something new, neither human nor collective, but something in between. We can help you understand these changes if you wish." Sarah should have been terrified. She should have been angry at the universe for taking everything from her. Instead, she felt an unexpected sense of possibility. She had always dreamed of exploring the unknown, pushing the boundaries of human understanding. Now she would become the unknown. "I wish," she said firmly, meeting Zaraven's swirling gaze. The alien's form rippled with what might have been pleasure or amusement. "Then let your education begin, Sarah Chen of Earth. There are wonders in this universe beyond your wildest dreams." As Sarah stood on shaky legs, supported by her alien savior, she thought of her lost crew. They had set out to push the boundaries of human exploration. She would honor their memory by pushing those boundaries further than anyone could have imagined. The transformation had begun, and this was only the beginning. Between two worlds, the first signs of Sarah's transformation manifested in unexpected ways. She would wait to find her fingers trailing stardust, her skin rippling like quicksilver in moments of strong emotion. The collective's medical bay had become both her sanctuary and her prison as she struggled to understand her changing body. "Focus on the resonance," Zaraven instructed, their forms shimmering with patience. Around them, medical instruments danced like constellation patterns. "Let your consciousness expand into the ship's neural network." Sarah closed her eyes, concentrating on the strange new awareness that hummed at the edges of her mind. It felt like trying to catch smoke with her bare hands. "I can almost," she began, then gasped as her perception suddenly shifted. The ship's systems bloomed in her mind like a three-dimensional star chart, each function and subsystem a distinct point of light. "Well done," Zaraven's approval rippled through her consciousness. "You are adapting faster than we anticipated." "It's beautiful," Sarah whispered, opening eyes that now swirled with tiny galaxies of their own. "But terrifying. How much of me will remain human when this is done?" "Change does not erase what came before," another voice joined their conversation. Sarah turned to see elder voice Tharalen enter the medical bay, their form a complex lattice of shifting crystalline patterns. It builds upon it. The elder voice had taken a special interest in Sarah's case, though their reasons remained mysterious. Like all members of the collective harmony, they communicated primarily through thought and emotion, but there was a depth to their mental voice that made Sarah think of ancient libraries and forgotten wisdom. "Tell me about the others," Sarah asked, carefully disconnecting from the ship's network. The withdrawal left her feeling oddly hollow. "Surely I'm not the first organic being you've encountered." "No," Tharalen agreed, their form rippling with what might have been amusement. "But you are the first to survive direct exposure to fold space energies. Most organic matter simply disintegrates." Sarah shuddered, remembering her crew. "Why did I survive?" "That is one of many mysteries we hope to understand," Zaraven interjected. "Your genetic structure appears to have unique properties that allowed it to adapt rather than break down." "Lucky me," Sarah muttered, then immediately felt guilty for the bitterness in her voice. The collective had saved her life after all. They were under no obligation to help her understand her transformation. Tharalen moved closer, their crystalline form casting rainbow refractions across the medical bay walls. "We understand your struggle, Sarah Chen. To be caught between forms, between identities, it is not an easy path." "You speak from experience?" Sarah asked, noting a flicker of something like pain in the elder voice's swirling eyes. "Our species is not always as you see us now," Tharalen revealed. "We too chose transformation, though ours was deliberate. We merged our organic forms with quantum technology to survive our dying sun." This was the first real information about the collective's history that anyone had shared with Sarah. "How long ago?" "By your measurements, perhaps 1,000,000 years, Zaraven answered. "Time moves differently when you exist partially in fold space." Sarah's head spun with the implications. 1,000,000 years of technological and cultural development beyond humanity's current level. And now she was becoming something that bridged that vast gap. "What am I becoming?" she asked quietly. "Really?" "That depends largely on you," Tharalen responded. "Your transformation is unprecedented. We can guide you, but the path you walk is your own." Sarah stood, pushing away from the medical bed. Her legs were steady now, and her new garment shifted with her movement, adapting to her needs. Then teach me everything. If I'm going to be stuck between worlds, I want to understand both of them. A wise choice, Zaraven approved. We will begin with basic quantum mechanics and their interaction with consciousness. Sarah almost laughed. Basic quantum mechanics to a species that had mastered fold space travel. This was going to be interesting. Over the next several days, though time felt increasingly fluid aboard the collective vessel, Sarah immersed herself in her education. She learned how to manipulate the ship's quantum field generators with a thought, how to read the complex energy patterns that served as the collective's written language, and most challenging of all, how to control her own transforming body. It responds to emotion and intent, she muttered to herself, watching her hand shift from solid to semi-transparent and back. Like everything else here. You are beginning to understand, Zaraven observed from their regular post nearby. The medical officer had become something of a mentor to Sarah, their patience seemingly infinite. I understand that the more I learn, the less I know, Sarah replied, then smiled as she recognized the very human frustration in her voice. Some things hadn't changed. A universal truth, regardless of species, Tharalen's mental voice preceded their arrival. But we have news that may interest you. Sarah turned to face the elder voice, noting the unusual patterns of energy flowing through their crystalline form. What is it? We have detected another fold space anomaly, Tharalen announced, similar to the one that brought you to us. Sarah's heart raced. Another Earth ship. Unknown, Zaraven replied, but the energy signature suggests experimental quantum technology. We have to investigate, Sarah said immediately. If there's any chance. We suspected you would say that. Tharalen's form rippled with what Sarah had learned was their version of a smile. The course is already set. Sarah reached out with her new senses, feeling the subtle shift as the massive ship changed direction. Somewhere out there, another ripple in reality waited to be explored, and this time, she wasn't just a helpless victim of circumstance. She was becoming something new. Something that might just help bridge the vast gulf between humanity and the wonders that awaited them among the stars. Ready yourself, Zaraven advised. The unknown awaits. Sarah nodded, watching starlight bend around her transformed fingers. She was ready for whatever came next. After all, she was becoming a bridge between worlds. The ship accelerated into fold space, carrying them toward mystery and, perhaps, answers. Echoes of home. The fold space anomaly pulsed like a wounded star against the backdrop of infinity. Sarah stood on what the collective called the observation nexus, though to her human sensibilities, it looked more like standing in open space. Her partially transformed body allowed her to interface directly with the ship's sensors, sending waves of data coursing through her consciousness. The energy signature is definitely human in origin, she reported, her voice carrying an ethereal echo as her form shifted between solid and translucent. But it's different from the Pathfinder's drive. More refined, Zaraven agreed, their crystalline form analyzing the data alongside her. Someone has improved upon your original design. Sarah felt a complex mix of pride and concern. Pride that humanity had continued pushing the boundaries of quantum technology, concern about what that might mean for the universe at large. Her own transformation was proof of how dangerous and unpredictable such experiments could be. We are detecting debris, Tharalen announced as they joined them in the Nexus, and life signs. Sarah's heart leaped. Human. Uncertain, the elder voice replied, the quantum interference makes precise readings difficult, but there is consciousness present. We have to help them, Sarah insisted, already reaching out with her new abilities to interface with the ship's rescue systems. After weeks of training, the process felt almost natural now. Caution, Zaraven warned. The anomaly is highly unstable. Direct intervention could be catastrophic. Sarah studied the swirling energies, applying everything she'd learned about quantum mechanics and fold space dynamics. What if we created a resonance field? something to stabilize the anomaly long enough to extract any survivors. The two collective beings exchanged what Sarah had come to recognize as their version of impressed surprise. Possible, Tharalen conceded, but it would require precise control. A miscalculation could collapse the entire sector into a quantum singularity. Then it's a good thing you have someone who understands both quantum science and human technology, Sarah said with a confidence she didn't entirely feel. I can do this. After a moment of silent communication, the collective members agreed. Sarah felt the ship's vast power systems align with her consciousness as she began crafting the resonance field. It was like trying to weave a net out of starlight while riding a tsunami, but her unique perspective, caught between human and collective, gave her insights neither species would have had alone. The anomaly's chaotic energies gradually stabilized under her influence. Through the clearing quantum static, she detected a familiar shape, an escape pod, but of a design she didn't recognize. Remarkable, Zaraven observed. Your solution is elegant. Save the compliments for after we rescue the survivor, Sarah replied, concentrating on maintaining the field as the ship's recovery systems locked onto the pod. Assuming they're still alive. The pod looked relatively intact as it was drawn into the ship's receiving bay. Sarah disconnected from the ship's systems, her form solidifying as she hurried toward the bay. Zaraven and Tharalen followed, their crystalline bodies flowing like liquid mercury through the corridors. The pod's hatch was already opening when they arrived. Sarah stepped forward, ready to greet another human survivor, and stopped short in surprise. The figure that emerged was definitely human, but not in the way she expected. Like her, they showed signs of quantum transformation, though at a much earlier stage. Their skin had only just begun to take on the metallic sheen that now characterized Sarah's appearance. I knew someone would come, the survivor said, their voice rough from disuse. The calculations suggested other attempts would be made. They focused on Sarah with eyes that were just beginning to swirl with inner light. I didn't expect to find one of our successes. Who are you? Sarah demanded, noting the way Zaraven and Tharalen had taken defensive positions. What do you mean, our successes? The survivor smiled, an expression that sent chills down Sarah's spine despite her transformed nature. Dr. Marcus Webb, head of Project Ascension, and you, Commander Chen, are proof that our theories about human transcendence were correct. Sarah felt as if the deck had dropped out from under her. You know who I am. Of course, the Pathfinder's loss was a tragedy, but your survival and subsequent transformation validated everything we've been working toward. Webb's partially transformed features took on an almost zealous cast. Humanity's next evolutionary step. He speaks of transformation as if it were a goal, rather than an accident, Tharalen observed, their mental voice tight with concern. Because it was, Webb confirmed, apparently able to perceive the collective's communication. The quantum drive failures were never failures at all. They were attempts to force human evolution through controlled exposure to fold space energies. Horror and rage warred in Sarah's chest, causing her form to ripple violently. You deliberately sacrificed those crews. My crew. For the advancement of our entire species, Webb argued. Look at what you've become, Commander. You're a bridge between humanity and beings of pure energy and thought. You're the future. A future built on death and deception. Zaraven's mental voice was sharp with disapproval. A necessary price, Webb dismissed. And now that I've found you, we can continue the work. Perfect the process. Think of what we could accomplish together. Sarah felt sick. Her transformation, which she'd been slowly coming to accept, even embrace, now felt tainted by the knowledge it had been engineered through the deaths of her friends and colleagues. You're wrong, she said, her voice carrying harmonic overtones as her anger affected her control. What happened to me was an accident. What you've done is mass murder. Webb's expression hardened. I'd hoped you'd understand. That your transformation would have given you the perspective to see the bigger picture. His partially transformed hand reached for something at his belt. Unfortunately, it seems you're still thinking with human limitations. Sarah. Both collective beings broadcast alarm as Webb activated some kind of device. The quantum energies still clinging to him began to pulse erratically. If you won't help willingly, Webb snarled, his form beginning to blur at the edges. Then perhaps another dose of fold space exposure will change your mind. Sarah reached out with her quantum senses, realizing with horror what he was attempting. He was trying to create another anomaly, right there in the receiving bay. If he succeeded, the resulting quantum cascade could tear the ship apart. She had seconds to make a decision, and for all her transformation in that moment, Sarah Chen's human heart knew exactly what she had to do. The question was, would her newfound powers be enough to stop a madman willing to sacrifice everything for his twisted vision of human evolution? The quantum storm was about to break, and the fate of two species hung in the balance. Event horizon. Time seemed to slow as the quantum energies around Dr. Webb intensified. Sarah could see the fold space anomaly beginning to form, reality itself buckling under the pressure of his desperate gambit. The receiving bay's metal walls rippled like water, responding to the quantum distortion. The ship's containment fields are failing. Zaraven's mental voice cut through Sarah's consciousness. We cannot survive a full quantum cascade. Sarah reached out with both her human instincts and her new quantum senses, analyzing the situation in microseconds. Webb's device was crude compared to the Collective's technology, but that made it more dangerous, not less. Like a dirty bomb compared to a precision weapon. Your transformation is incomplete, Sarah called to Webb, trying to reason with him even as she began gathering her power. You can't control these energies properly. Control is overrated, Webb laughed, his form increasingly unstable as the quantum energies consumed him. Chaos is the greatest catalyst for evolution. The Collective understands this, don't you? We understand that there is a difference between guided transformation and reckless destruction. Farrellen responded, their crystalline form pulsing with barely contained energy. Sarah felt the ship's systems responding to her connection, offering her access to their full power. But she hesitated, knowing that a direct energy confrontation would likely trigger the very cascade they were trying to prevent. Then she remembered something from her training with Zaraven. Quantum states weren't just about energy, they were about information, pattern, probability. You're right about one thing, Sarah said, her voice taking on harmonics that resonated with the ship itself. I am a bridge between human and collective science, which means I understand both. She reached out, not with raw power, but with precision. Her partially transformed nature allowed her to perceive the quantum patterns Webb was generating. More importantly, it let her see the flaws in those patterns. Your equations are incomplete, she continued, beginning to weave her own quantum field. You focused so much on the energy requirements, you forgot about quantum entanglement principles. Webb's confident expression faltered. What are you doing? She is showing true mastery, Zaraven observed with something like pride. Watch and learn, brutal one. Sarah's quantum field expanded, not fighting Webb's energy directly, but intersecting with it at carefully calculated points. Where their fields met, she introduced subtle variations, harmonic frequencies that began to alter the very structure of his attempted anomaly. No, Webb shouted, finally realizing what was happening. You'll ruin everything. I'm saving everyone, Sarah corrected, her form now glowing with contained power. Including you, whether you deserve it or not. The quantum patterns shifted, reality rippling like a pond disturbed by opposing waves. Webb tried to pour more power into his device, but Sarah was already 3 steps ahead, using his own energy against him. Each pulse he generated was caught in her quantum web, redirected and transformed. The containment fields are stabilizing, Farrellen reported, but the quantum backlash will be significant. I know, Sarah gritted out, maintaining her concentration. Be ready to catch us both. With a final surge of effort, Sarah completed her quantum pattern. The opposing energies cancelled each other in a precise cascade, releasing their power not in a destructive explosion, but in a controlled quantum collapse. Webb screamed as his device overloaded, the fold space energies he tried to harness turning inward instead of outward. His partially transformed body seized up, caught in the quantum backlash. Sarah felt the backlash too, her own transformation fluctuating wildly as the energies sought equilibrium. But she had the collective's training and technology supporting her, helping her ride out the quantum storm. When the energies finally dissipated, both humans lay on the receiving bay floor, their forms slowly stabilizing. Zaraven and Tharalen moved quickly to contain Webb, their crystalline bodies generating a quantum suppression field around him. How? Webb gasped, his transformation partially reversed by the energy collapse. How did you control it so precisely? Sarah pushed herself up, her own form settling back into its now familiar state between human and collective. Because I stopped trying to control it. The collective taught me to work with quantum forces, not against them, something you might have learned if you hadn't been so focused on forcing evolution at any cost. He will be contained, Tharalen assured her. His knowledge of quantum manipulation is too dangerous to allow him freedom. And what about me? Webb demanded. You can't just imprison me. Earth needs to know what we've discovered. Earth needs to develop these technologies safely and ethically, Sarah countered. Not through murder and forced transformation. She turned to her collective companions. But he's right about one thing. We can't keep this secret forever. Earth is clearly continuing quantum research. They need to understand the risks and the possibilities. You suggest revealing ourselves to your people, Zaraven asked, though their tone suggested they'd been expecting this conversation. I suggest offering guidance, Sarah clarified. Through proper channels, with proper safeguards, we can help Earth avoid the mistakes that led to this. And you would be our ambassador. Tharalen's mental voice carried complex harmonics of consideration. Sarah looked down at her transformed hands, then at Webb's contained form, and finally up at the beings who had saved and taught her. I'm already a bridge between our species. Might as well make it official. The council will need to be consulted, Zaraven noted. This would be unprecedented. Everything about this situation is unprecedented, Sarah pointed out. But that's how progress really happens, not through forced evolution, but through cooperation and understanding. As the collective beings led Webb away, Sarah remained in the receiving bay, watching the last traces of quantum energy dissipate. She had chosen her path now, committing to being more than just a transformed human or a partial collective being. She would be a true bridge between worlds, helping humanity reach for the stars without losing its soul in the process. It wouldn't be easy. Change never was. But for the first time since the Pathfinder's destruction, Sarah felt truly certain of her purpose. The quantum storm had passed, but the real work was just beginning. First steps. The collective council chamber defied human concepts of architecture. It existed simultaneously in normal space and fold space, its crystalline walls reflecting realities that human eyes were never meant to see. Sarah stood before the assembled council members, her transformed nature allowing her to perceive at least some of their majesty without going mad. You propose a fundamental shift in our policy of non-intervention, First Voice Lyra Vex stated. They form a complex lattice of living light and thought. This is not a small matter. I understand the gravity of what I'm suggesting, Sarah replied, projecting her thoughts as she'd been taught. But Earth's quantum research won't stop. Dr. Webb's actions prove that. Without guidance, there will be more accidents, more deaths, more uncontrolled transformations. Or worse, Tharalen added from their position as Sarah's advocate. They could inadvertently create a cascade that affects multiple realities. The council members rippled with concern, their forms shifting through colors that existed only in quantum states. Sarah pressed her advantage. The collective's policy of non-intervention was meant to protect developing species, she continued. But humanity has reached a critical point. We're touching forces we barely understand. Real protection now means offering guidance. And you believe you can bridge this gap? Another council member asked. Your transformation is unique. There is no guarantee others will accept your existence, let alone your authority. Sarah smiled, letting her form shift to demonstrate her precise control. I'm not suggesting we reveal everything at once. We start small, a diplomatic mission to Earth's leading quantum research facilities. Show them enough to prove we exist, then offer limited technological exchange focused on safety protocols. And what of Dr. Webb? First voice Lyra Vex questioned. His knowledge poses a significant risk. Which is why he stays in collective custody, Sarah answered firmly. Part of any agreement with Earth will include acknowledging the dangers of uncontrolled quantum manipulation. Webb serves as both evidence and warning. The council chambers fell silent as its members communicated in frequencies beyond even Sarah's enhanced perception. She waited patiently, knowing this moment could change the course of human history. Finally, first voice Lyra Vex spoke aloud for emphasis. Your proposal has merit, Sarah Chen, but it also carries great risk. If we'd agree, you will bear much of the responsibility for its success or failure. I understand, Sarah nodded, and I accept that responsibility. Then we will proceed, but with conditions. The first voice's form expanded, filling the chamber with subtle power. You will not be alone in this endeavor. On cue, a new figure entered the chamber. Sarah turned and felt her breath catch. The being approaching them appeared human at first glance, but moved with the fluid grace of the collective. Their forms shifted between states with practiced ease. This is Area Soul, Tharalen introduced. Like you, they chose transformation, though under very different circumstances. They have served as an observer of humanity for several of your centuries. Sarah stared in amazement. There are others like me. How many? Very few. Area Soul spoke aloud, their voice carrying harmonic overtones. And each of us is unique. The path to transformation is never the same twice. They smiled, an expression both human and alien, but we have much to teach you about bridging worlds. The council members shifted, their forms aligning in what Sarah had learned was a formal configuration. It is decided then. Sarah Chen, you and Area Soul will serve as our first official contact team with Earth. Choose your approach carefully. The future of both our species may depend on these first steps. Thank you, Sarah bowed, incorporating both human and collective gestures of respect. I won't let you down. As they left the council chamber, Area Soul fell into step beside her. You handle yourself well with the council, but Earth's politicians and scientists will be more challenging. Sarah laughed. I was a starship commander. I've dealt with bureaucrats before. Not like this. Area Soul's expression grew serious. Some will fear us. Others will want to exploit us. Many will refuse to believe we exist at all. Are you prepared for that? Sarah stopped, turning to face her new partner. When I first transformed, I thought I had lost everything, my crew, my mission, my humanity. But the collective showed me that change doesn't mean loss. It means growth. She let her form shift, embracing both her human and quantum aspects. Earth needs to learn that lesson too, before they stumble into disaster. Area Soul nodded approvingly. Good answer. Now, shall we plan how to introduce humanity to its new reality without starting a panic? They spent the next several hours in deep discussion, drawing on Area Soul's centuries of observation and Sarah's recent experiences with both worlds. The plan they developed was cautious but decisive, a series of carefully orchestrated revelations that would gradually prepare Earth for the truth about quantum science and alien contact. We'll need to start with the scientific community, Sarah decided, people who can understand the technical aspects and verify our claims. Agreed. Area Soul's form shimmered thoughtfully. I have identified several key researchers who might be receptive to first contact. If I may, Zoraven joined their discussion, having observed quietly until now. Consider beginning with those who have already detected quantum anomalies they cannot explain. They will be most prepared for what we offer. Sarah smiled at her mentor's insight. Good thinking. We can use their own data to support our revelations. She paused, a new thought occurring to her. We should also prepare for the web factor. Meaning? Ariasol asked. Meaning there might be others like him out there, people pushing quantum research too far, too fast. We need to be ready to contain any situations that develop. The Council has already authorized a response team, Zaraven assured them. Your focus should be on diplomatic contact. Sarah nodded, but her expression remained troubled. I just hope we can convince Earth's leaders to listen before someone else manages to create another quantum disaster. That, Ariasol said with a grim smile, is why we're not giving them a choice about listening. Sometimes the best diplomacy is simply showing up and refusing to be ignored. As they finalized their plans, Sarah felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. She was about to become Earth's first official contact with an advanced alien civilization. More than that, she would be living proof that humanity could transcend its current limitations without losing its essential nature. When do we begin? She asked, ready to embrace her new role fully. Ariasol's form shifted into something more conventionally human, though still striking. No time like the present. Earth's quantum research teams are about to make a breakthrough that could be problematic. We should introduce ourselves before they accidentally create another web situation. Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the quantum energies that now formed part of her being surge in response to her determination. Then let's go make history. Together, they headed for the ship that would carry them back to Earth. Sarah couldn't help but appreciate the irony. She had left Earth as a normal human commanding a quantum drive test mission. She would return as something far more, leading an even more important mission, helping humanity take its first conscious steps into a larger universe. The real question was, would Earth be ready for what she had become and what it meant for humanity's future? Worlds collide. The approach to Earth was surreal. Through her enhanced senses, Sarah could perceive both the familiar blue marble of her home world and the quantum energy patterns swirling around it, evidence of humanity's clumsy first steps into fold space manipulation. They're like children playing with antimatter, Ariasol observed from beside her. The collective ship, cloaked from conventional detection, held position just beyond lunar orbit. We were all children once, Sarah replied, watching a particularly concerning quantum fluctuation ripple out from somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. Even the collective. True, Zaraven agreed, monitoring Earth's communications networks. But our earliest experiments did not risk multiple realities. Sarah focused on the quantum disturbance. That's our primary target, isn't it? The Pacific Quantum Research Institute. Yes, Ariasol confirmed. Dr. Elena Santos is leading a team dangerously close to replicating Webb's work, though with better intentions. They think they're developing clean energy technology. Then let's introduce ourselves before good intentions pave another road to disaster. Sarah straightened, her form shifting to what she'd come to think of as her diplomatic configuration, mostly human in appearance, but with subtle quantum effects that couldn't be dismissed as tricks of light. The journey to Earth's surface was carefully calculated to avoid detection by conventional sensors. As they descended, Sarah felt a complex mix of emotions. This was home, but she was returning as something beyond human. Would they see her as a bridge between worlds or as an aberration? The Pacific Quantum Research Institute sprawled across a secluded valley, its modernistic buildings gleaming in the morning sun. Sarah could sense the quantum experimentation happening within, fortunately still contained, but pushing dangerous boundaries. Security systems neutralized, Ariasol reported, their form shifting to match Sarah's diplomatic appearance. Dr. Santos is in her primary lab. Shall we? Sarah nodded, and together they phase-shifted through the facility's walls, their quantum nature allowing them to pass through solid matter when desired. They materialized in a high-tech laboratory where a diverse team of scientists hunched over complex equipment. Dr. Elena Santos stood at the center of it all, her intense focus evident as she manipulated quantum field projectors. Sarah could see the dangerous instabilities building in their containment system. Dr. Santos, Sarah spoke clearly, causing the entire team to jump. I'm afraid we need to discuss the dangers of your current experiment. Chaos erupted. Security alarms blared, scientists scrambled for exits, and someone tried to initiate an emergency shutdown of the quantum equipment, which would have triggered the very cascade they were trying to prevent. Stop, Sarah commanded, her voice carrying harmonic overtones that demanded attention. With a gesture, she stabilized the quantum fields that had been about to collapse. We're not here to harm anyone. We're here to help. Dr. Santos, to her credit, recovered quickly. What are you? My name is Sarah Chen. Until 8 months ago, I was a commander in Earth's space service. Sarah let her form shift more dramatically, demonstrating her transformed nature. Now I'm something more, a bridge between humanity and the species that helped me survive my own quantum accident. The Pathfinder incident, one of the scientists whispered. That was you? Yes. And Dr. Webb's recent disappearance. Also connected. Sarah moved to the quantum containment system, her movements fluid and precise. You're brilliant, all of you, but you're working with forces you don't fully understand. Ariasol stepped forward, their presence commanding attention. We represent the collective, a civilization that mastered quantum mechanics 1,000,000 years ago. We've been watching humanity's progress with great interest and growing concern. Dr. Santos glanced between them and her equipment, her scientific mind visibly racing. Prove it. Prove you're not some government trick or corporate espionage. Sarah smiled and reached out to the quantum fields surrounding the laboratory equipment. With precise control, she restructured the energy patterns into a stable configuration that the human scientists could perceive. The air itself seemed to crystallize, forming complex geometric patterns that defied conventional physics. Your theories about quantum energy generation are actually quite close, she explained, manipulating the patterns. But you're approaching it from the wrong angle. The key isn't controlling quantum states, it's working with them. For the next hour, Sarah and Ariasol demonstrated principles of quantum mechanics that made the human scientists' most advanced theories look like kindergarten arithmetic. They showed how close the lab had come to causing a catastrophic cascade, and more importantly, how to prevent such disasters. Dr. Santos shook her head in amazement. This changes everything. That's rather the point, Ariasol said dryly. But change must be managed carefully. That's why we're here. We're offering a partnership, Sarah explained. Controlled sharing of knowledge, with proper safeguards. The collective can help humanity develop quantum technology safely, but there are conditions. What conditions? A senior researcher asked suspiciously. Primary among them, no more unauthorized experiments with fold space energies, Sarah stated firmly. We've contained 2 potential disasters already. There won't be a third. Dr. Santos studied the transformed humans before her, her expression thoughtful. You said you're a bridge. Does that mean others could become like you? Controlled transformation is possible, Ariasol acknowledged. But that knowledge comes later, much later. First, humanity needs to prove it can handle the basics responsibly. Suddenly, alarms blared, different from the security alerts earlier. Dr. Santos rushed to a monitoring station. We're detecting massive quantum fluctuations from our sister facility in Nevada. Some kind of unauthorized test. Sarah and Ariasol exchanged alarmed looks. The council feared this. Zaraven's voice echoed in their minds. Webb had collaborators. How bad? Sarah demanded, already reaching out with her quantum senses. Dr. Santos' face went pale. They're trying to create a controlled fold space corridor. Energy readings are off the charts. History repeating itself, Ariasol muttered. Sarah, if they succeed even partially. I know. Sarah's form shifted fully into its quantum state, preparing for emergency action. Dr. Santos, your facility is now under collective protection. Ariasol will explain everything. I need to stop your colleagues from tearing a hole in reality. You're not going alone, Ariasol protested. No time to argue. Someone has to stay and protect this facility, and you have more experience with first contact situations. Sarah's form was already beginning to phase shift. Besides, I've done this before. As she quantum shifted away, Sarah reflected that this wasn't quite how they'd planned to introduce themselves to humanity. But then, the best vans rarely survived contact with reality, especially when that reality involved humans playing with forces beyond their comprehension. The race was on to prevent another quantum disaster. But this time, Sarah wasn't a helpless victim. She was the bridge between worlds, and she would not let humanity's reach exceed its grasp. Not again. The final bridge. The Nevada facility blazed like a quantum inferno to Sarah's enhanced senses as she materialized in its central research chamber. The scene before her was terrifyingly familiar. Scientists scrambling in panic, equipment overloading, and at the center of it all, a growing tear in the fabric of reality. Shut it down. Someone was screaming. For God's sake, shut it down. It's too late for that, Sarah announced, her voice carrying harmonics that cut through the chaos. Everyone froze, staring at her transformed appearance. But it's not too late to prevent a catastrophe. A woman in a lab coat stepped forward, her eyes widening in recognition. Commander Chen, but you're dead. Dr. Rachel Martinez, Sarah identified the project leader. And no, I'm not dead. I evolved. No thanks to people like you, playing with forces you don't understand. The fold space corridor was growing, its edges beginning to crystallize into something that shouldn't exist in normal space-time. Sarah could feel reality itself groaning under the strain. We understood enough. Another voice declared. Sarah turned to see a familiar face, one she'd seen in Webb's personnel files. Dr. James Morrison, Webb's partner in Project Ascension. Sarah's form shifted as she prepared to contain the growing quantum disaster. Still trying to force humanity's evolution. Morrison smiled, an unsettling expression given the chaos surrounding them. We succeeded with you, didn't we? Even if it was accidental. Now we'll succeed on purpose. The collective was wrong, Sarah realized. Webb wasn't the mastermind. He was the test subject. You're the one who planned it all. Planned and improved, Morrison agreed. Webb's transformation was crude. This, he gestured to the crystallizing corridor. This is precision. We'll create a stable bridge between normal space and fold space, triggering controlled transformation in anyone who passes through. Sarah reached out with her quantum senses, analyzing the corridor's structure. What she found horrified her. You're delusional. This isn't a bridge, it's a quantum meat grinder. Anyone trying to pass through will have their atomic structure ripped apart. Some will survive, Morrison said with frightening conviction. The worthy ones. The ones meant to evolve. Like you. The corridor pulsed, reality rippling outward in nauseating waves. Sarah could feel the quantum cascade building. Once it reached critical mass, it wouldn't just destroy the facility, it would tear a hole in space-time that could swallow half the continent. Dr. Martinez, Sarah called out, never taking her eyes off Morrison. Get your people out. Now. But the containment protocols are useless, Sarah interrupted. This is beyond your technology. Go. As the scientists fled, Morrison made no move to stop them. It doesn't matter. Once the corridor stabilizes, nothing will be able to stop the wave of transformation. Humanity will be forced to evolve or die. Sarah felt Zoraven's presence touch her mind. The quantum cascade is approaching critical. Even our containment technology may not be enough. I know, Sarah whispered. Then she had an idea. A terrible, desperate idea. She was a bridge between worlds, not just metaphorically, but physically. Her transformed nature allowed her to exist in both normal space and fold space simultaneously. What if that was the key? You want to see real transformation, Morrison? Sarah stepped toward the corridor, her form beginning to shift. Watch carefully. She reached out, not to contain the quantum energies, but to merge with them. It was like trying to embrace a tornado made of lightning, but Sarah had learned from the collective. More importantly, she'd learned from her own transformation. The quantum corridor responded to her presence, its chaotic energies recognizing something familiar. Sarah became the eye of the storm, a point of stability in the quantum chaos. "What are you doing?" Morrison demanded, his certainty cracking for the first time. "Creating a real bridge," Sarah gritted out. The strain was enormous, but she could feel it working. The corridor was beginning to stabilize, not as a meat grinder between dimensions, but as a controlled quantum interface. "Sarah, the energy readings are beyond sustainable levels," Zaraven warned. "You cannot contain this alone." "She's not alone," a new voice announced. Ariasol materialized beside her, their form already shifting to match her quantum state. The collective sent reinforcements. Together, they began to weave a new pattern in the quantum energies, transforming Morrison's crude portal into something both beautiful and controlled. Other transformed beings appeared, the handful of humans who had survived contact with fold space over the centuries, each unique, each a bridge in their own way. "No," Morrison lunged for the control panel. "You're ruining everything." "Was saving everything," Sarah corrected. With a final surge of effort, the transformed humans stabilized the quantum corridor. Instead of a destructive tear in reality, it became a controlled interface, a true bridge between normal space and fold space. Morrison stared in disbelief as his weapon of forced evolution became something else entirely. "What have you done?" "Created what you couldn't," Ariasol answered. "A safe path for those truly ready to transform. Not through violence or force, but through understanding and choice." Sarah maintained her connection to the quantum interface, marveling at what they created. "This is how humanity will evolve, Morrison. Not all at once, not through some artificial forcing, but gradually, person by person, choice by choice." The security teams arrived, both human and collective, to take Morrison into custody. He went quietly, his entire worldview shattered by what he'd witnessed. As the chaos settled, Sarah studied the stable quantum interface they created. "I didn't know we could do this." "Neither did we," Ariasol admitted. "But then, that's rather the point of evolution, isn't it? Becoming more than we thought possible." Over the next few hours, as government officials and scientific teams converged on the facility, Sarah explained what had happened. The interface they created would become the first official connection point between human and collective space, a controlled environment where the two species could interact safely. "What happens now?" Dr. Martinez asked, her scientific curiosity overcoming her earlier fear. Sarah smiled, letting her form shift between her human and transformed states. "Now the real work begins. Humanity has seen what's possible. The question is, are you ready to evolve responsibly?" "Some of us are," Martinez replied thoughtfully. "Others may need more time." "Time we now have," Sarah agreed. "Thanks to this interface, we can control the pace of interaction and transformation. No more accidents, no more forced evolution. Just careful progress and mutual understanding." As she spoke, Sarah felt the truth of her own evolution. She had become more than just a bridge between worlds. She was proof that humanity could transcend its limitations without losing its essential nature. That transformation didn't mean destruction, but growth. The quantum interface hummed with potential, a doorway to humanity's next great adventure. And Sarah Chen, once lost between worlds, had finally found her true purpose, guiding that adventure with wisdom, compassion, and hope. The future was no longer about surviving transformation. It was about choosing to evolve, one bridge at a time.